Okay, what is up, everybody? Ooh, man, my hair's all screwed up today. DSP here, and welcome to Hate Live. It's the very first Hate Live in a month. Today is Thursday, April 24th, 2014, and I'm very happy to be here tonight with you all and to be able to do another episode of Hate Live. As you guys know, I love doing it. This is the show where I get to talk about all kinds of different things. This is going to be a jam-packed show. We've got a lot of information regarding what I've been up to recently with gameplay and what's coming up next week and for the next several weeks into May, which is going to be jam-packed with new releases, finally, which is great. We've got a cumulative update regarding my impending move. That's right, after my house hunting efforts back earlier this month, I have returned from the house hunting trip. We found a house we like, and I'm going to give you all the skinny on everything that we're doing and what we've been up to. In regards to that, I want to give you a cumulative update so that, again, just similarly last month, when I gave you a full explanation of what was going on at Hate Live, I want you guys to be up to speed because this is going to majorly affect you if you are an ongoing viewer and or fan of mine, okay? We're also going to talk a little bit about gaming news. There's not too much, and the things that we have to talk about this week, unfortunately, are two negative things, but it's two things I don't want to miss out talking about. And then the back of the day segment is going to be an extra special segment where I'm going to, very first time, I'm going to open up regarding my friend who passed away when I was in high school, who was basically an inspiration to me, the reason why I started playing competitive Street Fighter. And I've actually got exclusive photos of him and an event held in the Midwest during the 1990s that have never before been released anywhere. And you're going to see, especially if you're into Street Fighter, if you're into competitive Street Fighter, you're going to see some familiar faces from the known Street Fighter universe who were around back then attending tournaments like this one in the Midwest. And it's going to be quite interesting. And then, of course, as always, we're going to do our final segment where we are going to do call-ins. Unfortunately, though, from what I'm thinking, with this Hate Live, this particular episode of Hate Live with so much to talk about, I think we may take up a lot of time, and I will have to see how much time there is for call-ins at the end of the show, okay? But before we get to any of that, let's talk games, okay? Let's talk what have I been up to for the past several weeks and what to expect in the near future, because I'll be honest, again, I knew this was coming. January and February of this year were slow. There was almost no new game releases, and the game releases that came out in those months were very disappointing, to the point where a lot of things that people thought were building up to be maybe blockbusters ended up fizzling out and being duds. So I spent most of January and February doing these older games, these kind of filler playthroughs for you, because I knew that, I wanted to keep giving you entertaining content, but I also knew that they weren't going to be like super popular months. March was the polar opposite of January and February. In March, we had tons of new releases that came out. And we're talking some that were good, some that were bad, and some that were just kind of okay. But there were some really great ones in there. I mean, the one that comes to mind for me is South Park: The Stick of Truth, which I don't think anyone expected to be anywhere near as good as it ended up turning out to be. And that was kind of the shining light amongst all the other titles. And then you had the excessive quality, quantity, and challenge of Dark Souls 2. That's by far, those aren't the only two games, but that's just an example of the crazy amount of stuff that came out all in March. And then, all of a sudden, come April, two things happened. Number one, I had to go on a house hunting venture in Washington State for almost 2 weeks. And number two, all the new releases ended. So you're talking, you went from overabundance, way too much in 1 month, to fizzling out into nothing for the month of April. And in fact, there is no new retail releases of games that are worth even trying until next Tuesday. So finally, this next week, we're going to have new games, but it took so damn long that, again, I've been doing just filler content. So what have I been doing? Well, I did an April Fool's special right before I went on this house hunting venture. Before then, I had been doing Resident Evil 4 HD, and I'd also been doing Final Fantasy X HD. Now, for those who were actually watching those playthroughs, the feedback has been amazingly, overwhelmingly positive. People are loving it. They say the gameplay is good. That, by the way, people are actually telling me I've become a better player because I played Dark Souls 2, and I got used to it, and I beat it. I toughed through it, and I beat the game. because they're amazed. They watch me play Resident Evil 4 and they're like, wow, you're beating things on the first try that, typically people don't. People fail at these things repeatedly. You're doing really well, and we think it's because you just played a really difficult game. You're used to that kind of, having to perform on the fly, and that people were really complimenting me, saying that I did a good job at that game. So thank you for that. But, so yeah, Resident Evil 4 and Final Fantasy X, they were put on hiatus while I went on this house hunting trip, and when I came back, I resumed both of those, okay? But now I've tried some other things as well. We had a new character in Killer Instinct Full Gore, who I've now played 2 sets of gameplay in, and those are actually completely live as of today. The final batch of those went live on DSP Gaming, and in addition to that, you had The Wolf Among Us Episode 3, which I had to play because I had to play catch-up because it came out a week before, and I had to play it as soon as I got back about a week ago. And now, this week, continuing on and finishing off Resident Evil and playing Final Fantasy, and then the beginning of Oblivion. That's right, the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, which I started last Friday. People are dying for me to play it again. I will be playing it tomorrow. I'm going to try to use some mods. I don't know if they're going to work. I don't know if they'll be the right ones, but tonight I'm going to take some people's advice that they sent me this advice on what mods to install, and I'm going to attempt to do that tonight. Okay, so that's what I've been up to, and quite frankly, it's pretty much what I'm going to be up to for the next several days, including tomorrow, Oblivion, and probably the conclusion of Spider-Man Web of Shadows, which I actually started this week as well. Saturday, we got co-op with Rambo. We're going to have a new Smart Guys, and the continuation and possibly conclusion of Lego The Hobbit. On Sunday, I've decided to do a fighting game marathon because I'm going to get an adapter in the mail tomorrow. I'm supposed to anyway. I ordered 2-day mail, so I better fucking get it. And this adapter allows you to plug any controller into your Xbox One and use it, including my old gaming joysticks that I used to use on Xbox 360 and PS3, but I had problems because they don't work on the Xbox One. Now, I've been trying to play Killer Instinct, and I've been having a tremendous amount of problems doing dragon punches, button inputs. In fact, I keep finding that the Xbox One controller is incredibly sensitive, and a lot of the times I'm trying to do a move with just one button, and 2 come out and I get a throw, or I get the wrong move that I don't want. I admittedly am not very good playing on a pad. This is the first fighting game in a decade, probably, that I even attempted to play on a pad. So, am I saying 100% it's the Xbox's fault? No, of course not. It's me. I grew up as a competitive fighting game player, and I played on joysticks. So, if this comes tomorrow, or hopefully, worst case scenario, it shows up Saturday, on Sunday, one stream, I will be doing Killer Instinct with the joystick, and I will be reviewing for you guys this adapter to let you know how well it works. And on the other stream, I'm going to try out a new game that came out this week, some kind of a Soul Calibur game. I'm not even sure what it's called, but it's free to play on PSN. I think it's only on PS3, though. And I'm interested because I want to see what the heck it is. We haven't played a Soul Calibur game in over 2 years. And a lot of people are reporting it doesn't work, which kind of sucks. If you're saying you made a new game, it's free to play, but it doesn't work, we'll have to see what happens with that. Originally, this game was supposed to come out very early this year, and it got delayed so many times. And now it finally came out with absolutely no announcement, no hoopla, no advertisement. No one even knows about this game, but I'm interested in it. So that's probably what my Sunday is going to consist of, in addition to the weekend preview. On Monday, I'm going to return to Final Fantasy X. For those of you who did not watch today's stream, I basically played it for about 4 to 5 hours, and I got pretty far, but I still have a ways to go to even just beat the game. So that I'm going to be doing on first stream on Monday. Second stream on Monday is undetermined, and the reason I say that is I'm not sure what I want to do yet. I'm going to see if anything comes up, if anything, you know what I mean, like kind of happens to jump into my lap or happens to happen between then and now. See if I want to do it on that second stream. If not, there's always a possibility it could be more Final Fantasy. It could be Oblivion. It could be anything. But I don't want to promise you to anything for Monday night because I'm not sure yet. Now, next week is a big week. Next week, finally, we get new releases in the form of Amazing Spider-Man 2. And if you remember, Amazing Spider-Man 1, which I played 2 years ago, I didn't like the movie, but I actually loved the game. So this is maybe another case where I think the game was really good. I've seen the previews for the movie. It looks absolutely awful. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. But that comes out. We've also got a game called Daylight, which is a new survival horror style game that's on PC and PS4. If it is out for PS4, I'll probably be checking that out. It seems to be very much in the same vein as Outlast, which we played last year. And then we've also got a game called Child of Light, which is supposed to be an RPG. I'm interested to see what the hell it actually is. I saw a few previews for it, and I was a little bit confused. But that comes out as well, so at least we have some new content this week. It's not just old games, replays. It's original content, new games that I'm finally getting to try out for you guys. And I know that a lot of you have been waiting for that stuff, okay? And then the month of May is kind of hit or miss. There's some things that are great. So, for example, the DLC for Outlast actually comes out in May, which is great. We've been waiting for more Outlast for a long time. It's finally DLC being released. Near the end of the month, we got things like Watch Dogs, which is huge. I mean, everyone's waiting to see what Watch Dogs has in store after waiting so long. Mario Kart 8, Wolfenstein The New Order comes out this month. So there's a significant amount of new content this month. Or this upcoming month of May, okay? We just have to get there, you know? It's kind of like, again, January and February were really slow. March was good. April's really slow. May stacking up to be pretty good. And even June, for the most part, looks like it may be pretty good. So I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that you will give my stuff a look if you did not. Of any of these downtime series. Just because I'm not playing a brand new game doesn't mean that what I'm doing isn't good. In fact, some people who are watching the Final Fantasy X playthrough are saying it's one of the most hilarious things I've ever done because my commentary is spot on. Someone sent me a really nice message and basically said, Phil, I want to thank you for Final Fantasy X because I really feel your commentary in that game is up to par with your old school commentary that you used to do. It's a shame that all those people who used to watch you kind of faded away over the years, and that really I just have a very small, dedicated, hardcore fan base right now. But for those who are still here, they're loving it. Okay? So you got to check it out. Please check out this content, even if it's not the biggest, most overhyped mainstream new game. It's still good. You know what I mean? Okay. So that's pretty much it for, talking about gameplay and stuff that's been coming up. All right? What I want to do now is give you a cumulative idea of what's been going on with me in my life and my house hunting ventures. And you might be wondering, what is he talking about? I haven't been following along for a few weeks or whatever. I don't know what's going on. I know he was gone for 2 weeks, but I didn't really pay attention. All right, here's the deal. I've come to my wit's end. My last episode of Hate Live, I talked about this. I can't be in Connecticut anymore. My internet is unreliable, all right? And I'm a prisoner to it. I can't even upgrade it or change it. I have the best internet available to me, and no one will let me get any other kind of internet where I live because it is a condo where there has restrictions, okay? The taxes here are too freaking high. For what I get out of the state, I don't get reciprocation for the amount of taxes that I'm paying. The prices here are too high. And the bottom line is that this place has served me well, but is now, I've outgrown it. I need more space to do things. I need more shooting locations, more resources, and I don't have that here. I would love to have my own office, to have all these kinds of areas to shoot and do new series and stuff. I can't do that where I currently am, all right? And so the purpose of this trip that we went out in early April, well, when I say we, it's myself and my girlfriend, Leanna, was to belch incredibly loudly and disturb everyone. No. The purpose of this trip was to go house hunting and find a place potentially that we liked. Now, originally we had 3 areas that we really were looking at. Florida, Texas, and Washington. And when I say that in regards to maybe around, I believe it was Sunrise, Florida, Dallas, Texas, and somewhere around the Seattle, Washington area. And we looked and we did research for months, and we were weighing in balance. What's good, what's bad? And basically Florida, taxes are low, prices are low. So in that regards, everything's cheap as hell to live out there, but there's bad weather, there's hurricanes, you need special insurance to live out there, and if we ever wanted to do things such as what my girlfriend loves to do, soap making fragrances, doing that kind of stuff, that's her hobby, there's all these restrictive laws about that in the state of Florida, okay? So we're like, oh crap. Now what about Dallas, Texas? Kind of the same thing, big city, lower taxes, lower prices than in comparison to Connecticut, but there was hot weather for a lot of the year. We actually looked at some of the prices of homes down there, and we weren't too happy with the prices we were seeing, which kind of sucked. And so it was kind of like, well, let's look at Washington State. It's completely different from the other two. It's a different climate. The prices are still cheap. There's still less taxes, right? There's no state income tax in the state of Washington. And so after a period of several months where we were just looking at all these different places, okay? We're looking at all these different places. We said we wanted to start doing house hunting trips. And we said, where can we go to first? And so we started looking and we found a bunch of homes in the Seattle, Washington area that had exactly what we were looking for reasonable prices. It wasn't like, okay, it's out of our budget and we're really going to have to sacrifice to make it work. No, there were houses that were pretty much within our budget that we could afford. And that was the very first time when we kind of saw the prices out there. We were like, we might be able to make this work. We might. It's a very strong possibility we can make this work. And so we decided to go through a pre-approval process with a mortgage company, and we went through all these hoops, and we finally got a pre-approval letter, and we went out to see houses in the Seattle area during this Seattle trip. Now, I already done a cumulative recap video of what happened during the Seattle trip. I'm not going to do that again. If you want to hear what we saw on everything and everything about Seattle, you can go watch that video. It is live already on my vlogging channel, The King of Hate Vlogs. But what ended up happening was we saw a house that we really freaking liked. It had a great amount of square footage, the right amount of room so that we could do what we wanted to do with them, an amazing bathroom, a huge kitchen, a back door area, and it actually is a private gated community, which is a huge plus for us, being that we're both people who are public personas, we're on the internet, there are people out there who are, will do stupid shit to troll, and when you're in a gated community, you immediately end all that. No one can get in, no one can get shit delivered to you that you didn't order, you know what I mean? No one could do any of those stupid things that people like to do in the event that someone got my address. Not that I would give it out, but hey, I didn't give out this address and people found it out too. So, a ton of stuff, okay? A ton of stuff that was just so positive about this house. There were a few negatives. The kitchen, there's a few things about the kitchen we don't like that we would love to renovate. And there's a possibility that we're going to have to do minor renovations on a little bit of the house. But for the most part, we did like the house a lot. And so when we got back from Washington, we actually said to our real estate agent who had showed us the homes, we're really interested in this one. House number 4 is what it was called because we had seen 6 homes. And here's why, and let's get the process going. So we did. And so this has been a pretty unique time because the past week and a half, 2 weeks, we've been working with the realtor, the mortgage broker, escrow agent, the sellers of the house themselves, and there's been so much going on behind the scenes that unless you've seen every single pre-stream video, you have no idea cumulatively where we are right now because I haven't just in one video talked about it, which is what I'm about to do right now to get you guys in the know on what's going on. So the bottom line is, as of last week, we made an offer on this house. It was lower than what the asking price was for the house. The sellers countered and said, no, we will not do that much, but how about this? And we went back and forth for a few days, and finally what it came to was we were going to pay list price for the house, what the house actually is worth if you look at comparables in the area, other homes that have sold recently in the area. If you look at the stats of both of this house versus the other houses that sold, they're selling it for about the right price, okay? So we're going to pay that, but they have to pay my closing costs, meaning any fees that go to the mortgage broker, any fees that go for the appraisal, any fees that go for this, for that, blah, 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 blah. They're paying for that. So basically, I only have to pay the mortgage and the down payment. Of course, I have to do a down payment. They have to pay all the fees. And that's how we're going about it. So, finally, after days of negotiating, we settled on this. And as of late last week, we agreed. And there was a lot of paperwork. My God, there's so much fucking paperwork to read through and to have to sign and to have to do all this shit with, okay? So at the end of last week, after signing all this paperwork or whatever, getting it through, I think I'm good. And my real estate agent is like, wow, great job this week. We're good. I'll progress with this. The next thing is going to be things with the loan and the mortgage you're going to have to deal with, right? Then all of a sudden I get a frantic call from her on Friday saying, the one problem is that I checked my mailbox and I don't have the earnest money that we had discussed. I hope that it's in the mail because I need it ASAP. And I'm thinking to myself, she never mentioned earnest money. In fact, I don't even clearly understand what that means, okay? So come to find out, the way that it works, at least I guess in the state of Washington, I don't know if it's like this anywhere else, is that when you are doing a house hunting mortgage / any kind of a deal that involves the realtors, okay? They have a requirement that you're going to put down a certain amount of money out of your pocket, okay, as kind of a good faith that you're not going to be a jerk and you're just wasting everyone's time. So, for example, that there's not some asshole out there who maybe wants to buy a house but really knows he can't afford it, but he really wants to feel like he's the guy that can do it. So he's going to go through the process. He's going to pull on everyone's leg. He's going to have, realtors on both sides getting all the way up to the point where they need to get the loan, and then he just completely backs out of the deal, and that's it. Okay? If someone were to do that, just think about that. That's weeks of work for the realtors, for the mortgage broker, for the people who showed the house, for the sellers. Everyone putting in all this work for a guy who's not really serious about buying the home. So what they have is called an earnest money agreement. That's a protection against it. What it means is that you have to write a check for several $1,000s. In this case, it was about $3,000 that I had to write a check for, okay? That was sent off to the realtors at the end, at the closing. As long as I close on this loan, that money immediately gets applied to the loan, and so I don't need to take out as big of a mortgage as I would have had to if this earnest money agreement didn't exist. If I flake out, that money is to be distributed amongst all the people who worked on the job, and then I flaked out. So that's why they do it, but I didn't know anything about this. So I had a call with her where she insisted that she had told me, which I know she didn't, but I said, this is silly. I'm an adult. I'm not going to sit here and argue with my mortgage agent. I just got to figure out what to do. So I had it overnighted to her. She ended up getting that this past weekend, so that worked out fine. This week, pretty much I signed the final kind of documents that I needed to sign with my real estate agent. The ball just rolled into the hands of the mortgage broker, who is now trying to get me signed up and closed on a mortgage to pay for this home. And boy, does this have a lot of hoops and things that you have to jump through. Let me tell you, so much stuff. But between 4,000 e-copies of agreements and shit. Or do you know about this? Do you know about this interest rate? Do you know about this? Do you know about that? Do you understand this? This will be due at closing. This will be due later. I got contracted by the escrow company of all people. The escrow company are the people who are going to take money from me on a monthly basis, put it into an account to make sure that I have enough money by the end of the year to pay for the taxes and the insurance on my home. And they already contacted me before the mortgage broker even did, which I was like, I don't know why you're sending me or contacting me on this now and sending me this stuff now. It's a little early for that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not at that stage where I would be giving you this stuff yet. But anyway, basically, I've been in contact with my mortgage agent all week long. And it's been this after this, sign this, e-sign this, here's a number, here's a figure. The good news is this. Originally, I had contacted this mortgage agent back in early March, was when I originally had them run my credit, find out if I could be approved for a loan before I went out to Washington to even be looking for houses. And when they had run my credit at that point, interest rates were at one level. Since then, interest rates have actually dropped. So what that means is that my interest rate on my loan is going to be slightly less than what I would have paid last month, and overall I'll be paying less to get this loan, which is great. That's great news, right? Great news that I actually waited a little longer, and it actually helped me because I did that. So I locked in at a certain rate. The paperwork's all going through. In the meantime of all this happening, I'm thinking in my head, and I'm thinking hard, and I'm thinking, geez, the cost to move out there is going to be several $1,000s. I'm going to have to furnish the place because it's not going to have things like a couch, a dining room table, chairs, all the bookcases / dressers for all the rooms to put our clothes in, things for the bathroom, drapes for the windows, blinds for the windows, because remember I film and I can't film if there's all this bright sunlight constantly coming into the unit, so I'm going to have to do that. There's actually all kinds of stuff that needs to get done before we can officially say we're moved in. What about just my office? I'm going to need somewhere to sit. I'm going to probably need another TV. I'm going to need this and that. And all this stuff's going through my head, and I'm like, how am I going to pay for that? Because I have the money in savings, but I don't want to spend all the money immediately. If I spend all the money immediately and have $0 in savings, now what happens if something goes wrong, right? Now I'm screwed. So, thinking about all this, in my head, the gears are going round. And I said, well, realistically, I know how much money I have in my savings, but what kind of credit do I have right now? And what I mean is not my credit score, because my credit score is actually quite high, but what is my credit when it comes to what can I actually pay with a credit card and or financing? And so I started looking, and I opened my wallet earlier this week. I say, what is this? What is all this shit? And I realized that I have credit cards that I opened, I shit you not, in like the early 2000s that I've just auto renewed and I don't use them anymore. And there's no reason for me to have them because the interest rates went sky high in the mid 2000s. All these credit companies decided to raise all the interest rates on credit cards sky high during that whole banking crash. And since then, I haven't used credit cards. So I was looking at them and I was like, 18%? I'm not fucking paying that. And I canceled that card. 17%? Fuck that. One of them was 22%. Do you have any idea how long it would ever take you to pay off the interest on a 22% credit card if you're paying minimum payments every month? You probably wouldn't pay it off before you're dead. Okay? So I'm looking around at all this and I say, that's it. And I canceled all my old shit. I said, I don't need any of this. I'm starting fresh. I have a higher credit score now than I had back then anyway. And I was able to apply for a few new credit cards that now have pretty high limits and also have 0% interest for a year and a half. So I was like, this is perfect. Now, when we move to the new place, I can get the couch, I can get the furniture, I can get all the stuff for my office, I can get all the shit that we need up front and pay it off gradually with no interest for the next year and a half, which is the problem. I mean, I make money, but I don't make it all in one lump. I make it spread out. And so I need to spend all this money in one lump, but I can't pay it in one lump. And that's what this financing is going to enable me to do. And of course, a lot of these places, they're going to be saying, oh, we have our own financing as well. You know, year and a half, 2 years, no interest. So I'll try to take advantage of those kind of things too, if they propose themselves to me. Now, the interesting thing about this though, is that here's where having a financial background is going to help me versus what happens, unfortunately, with a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans, unfortunately, they fall for the trap of the financial system. They find out, they get all these mailings. Oh, you could get a credit card with a couple $1,000 limit and 0%. And you could get this. And immediately they don't see that as, wow, that's something I have to pay back right away. They see that as that's free money and I can have all the things I always wanted. And, you know, I'm going to charge up a storm and get all these cool items. And no one can say anything about it because it's me and my credit, blah, 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 blah. And then 3 years later, when all those bills hit them because they couldn't pay off those balances before the 0% financing ran out, and a year and a half's worth of cumulative interest slaps them in the face when they finally have to start fucking paying it a year and a half later, and now they can't afford it, so they're making minimal payments on all their cards, and they can barely make ends meet because they stretch themselves too thin. That is the pitfall of the American financial system. People will throw credit your way, literally throw loans, credit cards your way, without ever explaining to you the pitfalls of it and how to manage it properly and how to be responsible about it. So I even already had I already had the discussion with my girlfriend Leanna that regardless of the fact that we have good credit, we cannot go out and buy above our means. So for example, perfect example here. We need a couch. We're going to need a couch for the living room of our new place. We can't go out and buy an $8,000 leather gourmet, not gourmet, but designer. That's what I want to say. Designer couch. You know what I mean? No. We got to live within our means. We are very much middle class people. We were raised middle class. We've always been middle class. That's how we need to live. Because when you live within your means, that's how you make out. And let's be honest, even if at some point in my life I make more than middle class style money, if I'm still living middle class, that's what I'm used to, I could put that money away. And as I'm putting that money away, now I can start to save up for things like maybe starting my own business and stuff like that outside of YouTube, right? So that's how really I'm approaching it, and that's how I have to approach it. Now people are making fun of me for accidentally saying gourmet couch. Who wants to buy the gourmet edible couch? They're all making fun of me in the stream chat. All right, so it's funny because where we're at right now is after weeks of me signing forms and all this shit. So now the mortgage is really getting pushed ahead, and it's to the point where it's probably very shortly going to go to the underwriter to explain the situation of, who I am, what my job is, the amount that I'm seeking to get approval for. Today I e-signed, I shit you not, 24 documents. 24 legal agreements were sent my way via email that I had to freaking sign, and it was a nightmare to get through it. It took about 45 minutes, but I got through it. Even then, I've got 6 more agreements that I had to print out, and they want me to physically sign, scan, and send back to them, which is even more frustrating, but I got to do it. This is what you have to do. You have to go through all this work Work, work, work. I told you guys months ago, it's a ton of work to get this going, okay? So, what's left between now and the day that we close? Well, the loan has to go through. Once the loan does go through, the appraisal has to take place. So a guy has to go out there and actually appraise the house and say, okay, yeah, this house is worth what they're getting for a price. If it's not, now the seller has to totally change their selling price because they can't charge me more than what the house is worth. And the bottom line is, since I'm seeking a mortgage, the bank that I have will not pay more than what the house is worth on a mortgage for it. So the sellers are going to have to lower their price, and that's a possibility. The appraiser could go out there and say, no, you guys, you overestimated by 20 grand, and it's not worth as much as you think. And that's actually exactly what happened with this condo. When I went to buy this condo, the sellers were like, we don't think it's worth this. You know, it has all these extra features. It has a bar, which none of the other units in this facility have. It's a custom-made bar, a whole new, new carpeting, new this, new that, new cabinets, and we think we could sell it for this price. The appraiser came in and said, you guys are high. There's no way. When you look at other comparables in the area and you compare yours to theirs, yeah, it's slightly better, but it doesn't mean that it's a ton of money more. You have to lower your price. It's only worth this. And they ended up having to lower their selling price, which I had to end up paying them less a little bit, which worked out for me. So, that could happen. That could happen when it comes to this place that I'm trying to buy in Washington. And here's the big issue with that. What if, the big what if, let's say it comes in $25,000 less than what they're selling it for. Oh, wow, that's a big difference, right? What if they're trying to buy a house, right, where they're counting on the money from the sale of this house to pay for the next one, right? I don't know. I don't know what the case is. I don't know if they own it or if there's a mortgage on it or whatever. But what if that's the case? What if they need the money from this house in order to pay for the next house? And now if this is falling through and they're 25 grand short and they don't have the money, now everything gets canceled. It could happen. It could happen. Potentially, it could happen. And my realtor actually told me she's seen it happen before, where that happened. So, we've still got that hurdle to get over. I've still got an incredible amount of shit I need to do, including I'm going to have to do a profit and loss statement, which basically means that for every month of this year, January, February, March, and April, I have to say, make a spreadsheet. This is what I do for my accountant for my taxes, but now I have to do it for the mortgage broker. I have to say, here's my expenses that I spent on my business. Here's the amount of money that I brought in. So here's the net profit. And as you can see, my business is profitable. Not that they're giving me this loan. Oh, but by the way, my business completely tanked this year. I'm making no money at all. And now I have no way to pay your mortgage, okay? Of course, that's not the case. Everyone knows that's not the case. It's public knowledge that I'm doing decently. So there's no complaints there, but I have to prove that. With this escrow agent, I have to now figure this out because they're saying there's all this stuff with the escrow that's due at signing. And I'm like, but it's the sellers who are responsible to pay for all my closing costs, not me. So how are we going to arrange for that? Another thing that really confused me, they were like, oh, so at the time of closing, you're going to have to sign this and present this. And I said, wait a minute. Whoa. I live in Connecticut right now. I'm not going to be present for the closing. The closing is going to happen virtually, wherever you want it to happen on the internet or whatever. And I'm going to sign all the documents, own the house, and then I'm going to try to move over there as soon as possible, but it's not going to happen right away. I can't be there for the closing. I just flew there for house hunting, and I can't fly there again for the closing and then fly there again to move there. It's not going to happen. So the escrow agent finally got that through their heads and said, okay, we're going to have to do a digital, what they call a mobile notary, who's a notary who's like online, and they review all the documents online, and they give you, they'll notarize documents and stuff. It's really complicated, and it's a lot of work coming up. But I think it's going to be worth it. Right now, as long as things keep progressing, and I want to say thank you to you guys. You've been very patient, especially the streams these past couple of weeks where I've had to take breaks, extended breaks in between the streams or during the commercial breaks that I do during the streams because oh God, another email, another document I have to sign. Oh, I have to call my mortgage broker. I have to call my realtor, find out what's going on. This has been going on for 2 straight weeks since I got back from Seattle, and it shows no signs of stopping. So if all goes well and good, the appraisal, the rest of the paperwork, all that stuff, okay? It's looking like we are scheduled to close on May 22nd, which means if everything goes according to plan, on May 22nd, I will own this home in Washington State. Now, I am not able to move for a while. And the reason I say that is because there's so much going on in May. If you guys, like I just mentioned, in fact, let me check the calendar quickly. After May 22nd, okay, the week of May 22nd, we've got Wolfenstein: The New Order. We've got a game called Drakengard 3 and a game called Transistor, both of which look interesting. The week after that, we've got Watch Dogs and Mario Kart 8. The week after that, I can't see it. Oh. The week after that, we've got Murdered Soul Suspect. And the week after that is E3. And there's a game coming out, that game called, I think, Enemy Front. Okay? So really, when you look at that schedule, you're like, when the hell would I move? Because I've got work. And the bottom line is, I hate to say it, April is such a slow, bad month for me. And it's no one's fault. There's been no new content, and I was gone for 2 weeks, right? I don't want to say no new content. There's no new games, and I was gone for 2 weeks. I can't not work. You know what I mean? I can't say I'm going to skip these 2 to 3 weeks of new releases that everyone's interested in seeing because I'm going to move at that time, because it's not going to work. And those are the times I need to make money to pay for the move. That's the thing. I need to make the money so I can pay for the move. I can't just not work and then expect that I'm going to be able to afford this move. So it looks like I will not be able to move until the week after E3, which is the middle of June. And I think the only game coming out that week, the only game coming out is UFC, which I was on the fence on anyway, and there's no reason I can't just play it later. It's not like it's a game that you would have to play because there's a story spoiler that's going to happen if you don't play it right away, right? So more than likely it'll be around the middle of June where I'm going to be out of here, okay? I'm going to be out. And there's actually a few things I need to do before I get out of here. For example, I found out that in the state of Washington, you need to get an eye exam every time that you get a new license. And obviously I'm going to have to get a new license when I live there full time. But guess what? My doctors, my license, all the bullshit from when I was in high school, all right, says that I don't have good distance vision. It's true. All right, now I can read everything I could see on my back wall of my condo. I could probably read most of the names on my DVD cases. I can read everything in my condo. But if I'm in like a classroom and I'm at the back of the classroom, I can't read the blackboard. So how often are you driving and you need to see immediately tiny text that's literally like hundreds of feet away from you? Never. The signs that you read when you're driving are huge letters, and I've driven my whole life on the highway, on side roads, never needed any kind of visual aid to do it properly. I'm good. But technically it says on my driver's license I need glasses to drive because the idiots who make the regulations think they know something. So even though I've never worn glasses my entire life, in order to get this visual exam done and pass it, I'm going to need to get glasses. So I need to get glasses between now and the time that I leave Connecticut. I have to go to an eye doctor and get them. In addition to that, there's the matter of my car. And my car is on a lease. The lease ends in October. If I'm out of here in June, what do I do with the car? Because I'm not taking it with me. I cannot take the car cross country because I can't drive it cross country. I'm not paying to have it shipped. And the bottom line is, the car was nice. The BMW that I have now was nice when I was here. And I didn't have a big house that I was paying for. I didn't have to furnish a big house. I had the money to pay for it. Now that disposable income is going away. And so it's going to be time to downgrade. And to be quite honest, everything in Seattle is a compact car. Every parking spot, everywhere, everyone's driving little cars. So I'm probably going to get a little car when we move there. But what do I do now with this car that I'm stuck with 3 months of a lease that I don't need? Will they take the car in early? Are they going to charge me a penalty for that? That's a possibility. So we're going to have to see what happens with that because I don't know how that works. Okay? So, all that needs to be done by the time that I finally move in the middle of June. And then, after all that's done, and we're finally in Washington State, and we're buying the furnishings, I get my office set up, and please, Lord, I hope it works out. I hope I can get an internal capture card for this thing, which is what I want, so there's no more audio delay, so I can do 60 frames per second streaming and recording, that possibly one day I could do the 1080p recording that I want to do. I can get a better graphics card for this thing that has dual monitor out, so that when I'm doing PC gaming, I have the dual monitor set up, and I can see what's actually going on. And once everything's in place, then guess what? Is it time to settle in? Is it time to get into a normal life schedule and work schedule? No, because guess what? Then I have to try to sell this place because this condo needs to go. I cannot afford permanently to be paying 2 mortgages. There's no way I'm going to be able to afford that. So I need to sell this condo, but I can't do it until I have all my shit out of here because I have nowhere to put it, and there's no way they're going to be able to show pictures and show off this condo with all this shit in it. Look, you can't even see half, well, you can't see because the camera's not there. You can't even see half the condo because there's so many boxes, so much clutter. All this shit needs to go before I can try to sell this place. And I know there's going to be thousands of dollars that are probably going to go into repairs. There's holes in the walls. The piping is leaking. You know, there's shit. The fan just died. The ceiling fan in the bathroom just died on me. There's no carbon monoxide detectors in here. There's a ton of stuff that's going to have to be done before I can try to sell it. So once you're done with one, on to the next. And it's just going to be like this all year for me. But I really am hoping by the end of this year that number 1, we could be in our new home and happy. So number 2, I could sell this place, get it off my back, get it in the past. And number 3, that we can finally have relaxing time, a holiday, our first holidays together, me and my girlfriend. And there's potential for greatness, but we need to get through a lot of work and stress now to get to that point of greatness. So I want to say thank you to those of you who see that I'm stressed out all the time. You know, I'm doing my best, but it is what it is. This is going to be like this until all this is over. And don't get me wrong, I'm stressed, but it's excited stress. I'm happy to be going through all this because I get a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I just need to get to the end of the rainbow first before I start celebrating. Okay? So that's how everything is going right now. I know that was a lot to talk about and a lot to absorb. All right. The final thing that I would like to talk about, and then we'll take a break. Very minor gaming news that really caught my eye this past week. 2 particular stories that I want to talk about. The first is that supposedly even more trouble at Sony. If you remember a couple Hate Lives ago, we talked about how Sony seemed to be falling apart at the seams despite the fact that the PS4 has very much so overshadowed the market share of the Xbox One. And that Sony is selling incredibly well right now. The problem is, internally, Sony is having all these issues. People are leaving Naughty Dog. People are leaving major studios. And this is the latest one. Supposedly the creative director of The Last of Us, the biggest game that Sony's put out in years, the game that won Game of the Year for me and for 100 billion different outlets last year, just left. Whoa, really? So it's like, what? Again, I have to say, I know it's kind of the same story, you know, as earlier, but what the fuck happened? Seriously, like, what is going on with Sony that all of their talent is leaving? It's almost becoming like a mass exodus now, where the top talent from the best games they're making are walking. And I know that this happens, you know, time to time when it comes to different companies and different industries, but to see all the people walking at once is incredibly scary, you know? And why? What is going on? What is attracting them to other ventures? Why are they leaving? Is there something in the culture of Sony that they think is negative or hurtful or something that they don't want to deal with and they're actively leaving because of it? I don't know. I mean, you just sold one of the biggest games of ever, right? Why on earth would you leave that studio? I don't know. I just don't know, okay? And, okay, people are saying it's the art director, not the creative director. All right, fair enough. I misspoke. It is the art director, not the creative director. Still, it's huge. The artistic direction of the whole game just left. And, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. And then finally, the last one that I want to talk about, is an incredibly disturbing story. It's a story that really I am incredibly opinionated at, and I want to ask your patience if I go off on a tangent, a rant, or I get very emotional during this statement of what I'm about to talk about, because I am very upset when I read this article, and I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. A 24-year-old man who's a father, he had an infant child, okay? 1 a.m. in the morning, he's playing Xbox Live. Now, they haven't disclosed what game specifically he was playing, probably because they don't want to blame it on whatever game he was playing. He's playing Xbox Live at 1 in the morning. I guess he's either the mother's not home or he's a single dad. It wasn't clear in the article what the situation was. What was clear is that this guy was unemployed. Okay? Unemployed. And he's sitting around playing Xbox. Now, my question is this. So you're unemployed. You have no job and you're a dad. You have a kid. But you have enough money to pay for Xbox Live and to pay for games on Xbox Live. Because that's the priority when you're a dad with no job, right? So he's playing Xbox Live at 1 in the morning. His kid starts crying, won't stop crying. Duh, it's a baby. That's what babies do. They basically eat, piss, shit, and cry. That's what they're supposed to do until they grow, okay? He gets so incredibly frustrated at his baby for screaming and crying in the middle of the night that he storms into the kid's room, covers the kid's mouth with his hand, forcibly suffocates the child, causing the child to pass out, then proceeds to wrap the child so hard and heavy in its own sheets and covers that the child cannot move, and the child dies so he can go fucking play Xbox. The guy plays Xbox for 5 hours straight. At 6 in the morning, he thinks, gee, maybe it would be a good time to check on my child, and the child is dead. There's so many things that are just so fucking wrong with this world and this scenario that I get so upset and so caught up and wound up about, all right? First of all, do you really think this guy was fit to be a father, all right? And I hate to say it, but in this day and age, and I know there's people out there that are staunchly against birth control, right? It's bad. It's against our religious beliefs or whatever. That's fine. I'm not going to here to stay either way what's good or what's bad. But I've always been a firm believer that in your life you should be responsible because you have to be careful what you do when it comes to sexual relations, because it's not just you and it's not just the person who you're having sex with that's at stake. It's a potential child that could come into this world as well. Okay? Now, I don't know the particular situation around this guy. Like I said, the article didn't elaborate fully on this guy's situation. But it's obviously this guy's not fit to be a father, right? He's got no job. All he thinks is most important to do is to sit around and play Xbox Live at 1 in the morning. Hello, genius. Maybe if you fucking slept, you could be awake to look for jobs in the morning instead of being up playing Xbox Live all fucking night, you loser. So anyway, you have to be, at least in my opinion, and this is how I was my whole life, I was incredibly careful with my sexual partners, all right? If it means practicing safe sex, whatever your version of safe sex is, it could be using contraceptives, it could be using birth control, it could be just not having sex. I don't care what your preference is. That's not what I'm here. The point I'm making is be responsible and understand that, yes, sex is a great thing. Sex is a thing between two loving people. Sometimes not so loving, sometimes you're just looking to bang one out, but you gotta be responsible, all right? And there's so many people that I've seen personally in my life that were not ready to have kids, but because they were irresponsible, they had them, all right? And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Even to the point, some people, you wouldn't believe some of the people, if I told you their situations, the stuff that's happened, okay? Now, again, accidents happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, please be responsible. Do not bring a child into this world unless you can take care of them and you know that you're going to be a careful, responsible parent. That's all I'm saying. No child deserves to be abused or murdered by their own fucking inept parents. Okay? So, that's just number one. Number two, if you're taking care of a child, all right, oh no, I can't play Xbox One. Or, I'm sorry, it wasn't Xbox, it was Xbox Live. I can't play Xbox Live because the baby's so loud, I can't concentrate. Earth to fucking idiot. Maybe the baby can't sleep because you're fucking playing Xbox Live and it's making noise, you imbecile. I mean, I can't hear the game because the baby's crying. No, the baby can't sleep because you're playing the game at 1 in the morning, you fucking moron. Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. So, that's just point number two, right? And then the fact that this guy is so addicted to the video game. And I hate to say it, but there are people who have these personality types that they become addicted. And I said it, I actually talked about it earlier today on a pre-stream about mobile games, how addictive mobile games have become. Because now it's just, you play for a little bit, oh man, it's just quick, addictive gameplay. I gotta play some more, I gotta play more. Well, it says I can't play it for another 4 hours because I exceeded my limit, but if I spend $5 now, I can keep playing. Fuck it, $5, keep playing. And that's what it is. People are getting addicted to this. I guarantee you, he was probably playing one of these games that is incredibly addictive. And I'm not saying it's the game's fault, but a game like Call of Duty or any other FPS game. I gotta play more. Possibly a game like Minecraft where I just gotta keep building. I gotta keep doing mods. I gotta keep doing this. And people, they lose control of reality. They really just becomes tunnel vision about the game. And how many people, I want you to think about this because it's happened to me too. Think about a game that you've played and you started playing it and you were so into it, it was like hours later and you looked at the clock and you said, holy fucking shit. All this time just passed. I was playing this game. I didn't even realize it, right? I didn't even realize I spent that much time on the game. And maybe now it's too late. You were supposed to go to sleep. You missed out on something you were supposed to do that day. It happens. You zonk out. And that's why I said, yeah, games are for fun, but you have to play them responsibly too. You have to be a responsible adult when you're doing these things. You can't just say, I'm just going to fuck it, willy-nilly, do whatever, and lose track of time. This guy, for 5 fucking hours, didn't hear a peep out of his baby and didn't have a second fucking thought about it. Unbelievable. And then obviously, someone who would be willing to literally suffocate their own child to make them stop crying. There's just so much wrong with this story, okay? There's so much wrong. To make matters worse, even worse, this guy had recently moved to Florida. He used to live in California. Guess what his record was in California? Felonies and rape charges. So that's really the kind of person that you want a baby around, right? Someone who already is proven to have a violent criminal history is left alone with a small child. How that was allowed and how Child Protective Services weren't aware of what was going on, I have no fucking clue, but it happened. It happened. And obviously I'm upset about it. For multiple reasons. Number one, like I said, this guy had no fucking right to even be around a child. None. Zero. Just because you got a dick between your legs doesn't mean that you have some kind of a God-given ability to have a child, and you know what I mean? This is what it is. People take privileges and they take them for granted as like something you deserve. I deserve to have 7 kids if I feel like it. And no one can fucking stop me because I am God's gift to the planet and no. There are people out there who are just unfit to be parents. There are people out there who shouldn't drive a car. There are people out there who are just fucking nuts, who do crazy shit and shouldn't be treated like normal people. This guy was one of them, all right? And it just baffles my mind how this guy ended up alone with his child to begin with. So, you know what I mean? Just because you can have a kid doesn't mean you have a right to be a parent. You earn that right by proving that you want to step up and be a responsible parent and be someone who's loving and caring and cares about the life of that little person because you want that little person to grow up and be a productive member of society. Not that you use that person as a means to a fucking welfare check because you think that that's the way that you can coast through fucking life. And I unfortunately know people like that. There's plenty of them around this area that I know about that it's just absolutely ridiculous the way that some people choose to live their lives. So I don't know what the specific situation is with this guy. The bottom line is he never should have had a kid to begin with. But of all things, please, I have to say this, please, look, please, I'm holding the mic up and I'm begging reporters, media, please, for the love of God, do not make this story about the guy was playing video games and video games are evil. There's enough in this story, outside of the fact that the guy was playing fucking video games for 5 hours, there were enough red fucking flags to say that this was a bad situation. The guy's alone with this child, even though he has a criminal record for rape. He's unemployed, so obviously he doesn't have money to support the child. He's alone with it in the middle of the night. Well, how many red fucking flags do you need before you say this guy shouldn't have this kid? I swear, do not make this story Call of Duty, the game that murdered a baby. Because that is so irresponsible of the media that do that kind of shit. It really is. They spin it to their own fucking agenda, and to make that the story, that's not the story. The story is this guy who should not have had this child was responsible for this child. This happened. We got to find out where were the missteps and the gaps in between when he got the child and when this happened, to make sure other people like him don't get this kind of responsibility. All right, and that's where I'm going to end it. I'm going to count down because I'm very emotional right now. We're going to take a break. I actually have to refill my drink. I'm completely out. And when we come back, we're going to have a segment like no other. We've never done anything like this on Hate Live. I'm going to reminisce and basically bare my heart to you guys about my friend from back in the day who passed away. I'm going to tell you all about my experiences with him. And I'm going to show you some never before seen photos of him, and as well of a fighting game tournament that he attended in the late 1990s. It's going to be basically a tribute to him because it's like I've said, I'm at a point now where I'm moving on in my life. I'm going to be moving very shortly. I find myself reminiscing about things that I've done in Connecticut my whole life. This was one of the biggest events, life-changing events in my life, and I really want to talk about it and really, give a little bit of a tribute and a shout-out to my friend, okay? So we're going to be right back with Hate Live. If you are watching on YouTube, feel free to skip right ahead. There's tags right there in the description of the video. You can skip right ahead. No need to wait. If you're watching this on, if you're watching this on Twitch, well, I'm going to be running some commercial break ads here quickly. Please bear with me while I relax my voice, I get more drink, and we'll be right back with the next segment of Hate Live. Okay, everyone? Thanks, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay. Oh, did I unmute the mic? Yes, I did. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to Hate Live. And this is segment 2 back in the day. And this is pretty much going to be probably the most real back in the day I've ever done, because it's really going to be just talking from the heart about my very personal experiences with competitive Street Fighter, my origins in that, the person who got me into it, the person who quite honestly kind of was my mentor when it comes to having that competitive edge in fighting games. And his name was Telrence Carter, but he went by T. And he lived in the Bridgeport, Connecticut area at a time in my life when I also lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut, but I lived on the other side of town. T, unfortunately, was not lucky. He lived in a family with many different brothers and sisters, a home that really was not exactly high income, you know what I mean? And he lived on a very, very bad part of town. And because of that, frequently found himself walking to bus stops, walking here, walking there. Never ended up getting enough money for a car. Even his mom barely could drive anywhere. When she did drive, it was to work and back. And, you know, it was a rough life for him, really. And we met at my local arcade. Local arcade originally was called Crazy Eights Arcade. Later on, it changed, had like a shift in management, and ended up being called What's Your Game? And it was kind of a weird location because it was kind of between the bad area and the good area of Bridgeport, Connecticut. So it was kind of like people from all walks of life would walk in there and mingle. You'd have people who, like, I swear, would come in, I'm not even kidding, like, it was so ridiculous. Suit and tie, straight out of their office job, they'd walk in, oh, I'm here to play the Pac-Man. And then you would have, you know, the teenagers, the kids, the little kids. I was one of the littler kids at the time. You'd have, you know, the inner city youth. You'd have the middle class people. People from every race, creed, authority would walk into that place. And when you did, you were equal because you were all a competitor. And that was one of the most unique things about the arcade competitive scene that has been lost to this day, is that it was just a cornucopia of culture. I met so many people through the arcade scene that I never would have met outside of that in any other circle of my life. Pretty crazy, right? And it's funny because, you know, T, again, I never would have met him, ever. Where would I have met him if it weren't for the arcade? And really, in an arcade, everyone's equal. Everyone has the same quarter. Everyone puts the quarter up, waits their turn, gets up, plays the game. And when you play, it's not about what you look like. It's not about what you dress like. It's not about how you sound. It's not about what race, what creed, what religion, any of that shit. It's about your game. Your game speaks volumes about you, right? And the amount of dedication and the amount of practice that you put in. And in my local arcade scene, basically when I was starting to become a younger teenager, I'd say probably around 15, 16 years old, there was myself and there was T. Now, there were other people who played the games as well, and they were very good, but it always seemed when it came to the competitive aspect of Street Fighter in particular, because don't get me wrong, there were other games, there was Killer Instinct, there was Mortal Kombat, but when it came to Street Fighter, it was always myself on one side and T on the other. And I like to say this a lot, I used to say this, he was the Ryu and I was Ken, because T, I'll be honest, he had the natural talent. There's a difference between someone who sits there and practices and studies and works and really, you know, strives towards their goal and eventually gets it. And then there's those people who I swear, I don't know if they're savants, where they just, like that, they get it. T was one of those people. He could take a fighting game, a particular Street Fighter game, and he could, within 2 weeks, find the most ridiculous strategy that's so good in the game. Sometimes it would even be with a character that's like not a popular character. Like I remember, for example, just an example, because we played many, many fighting games over the years, but one of the ones that we were very competitive was Marvel vs. Capcom Part 1. And he played Mega Man. Now, not a lot of people played Mega Man in that game, because he was small, he's slow, he's more of a keep-away character, he's limited in what he can do. Within 2 weeks, T knew, like, amazing shit with him. No one could touch him. Seriously. Like, no one in the arcade could touch him. And we're all playing, like, how does he learn this shit? And this was, keep in mind, this was before the time of YouTube. before the time of facts and tutorials that were 100% correct on the top tier strategies for a game. Back then, yeah, there were like internet message boards and people who would discuss, but no one knew what top tier strategies were. I remember for Marvel vs. Capcom 1, Jay Snyder, Visant, he's known in the Street Fighter community as Visant, and he's still up there, he's still well known. During this time period, was posting on forums that Zangief and Jin were the two best characters in Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Now, anyone who played the game competitively knew they're actually two of the worst characters in the whole game, but that's how it was back then. People would win one tournament, post up about it, and everyone would think it was Bible truth. Oh my god. But he had this uncanny knack, without any help from anyone, of finding the shit that was like the most top tier shit in a video game. I don't know how the fuck he did it, but he just did it. I remember in Street Fighter 3, and I'm not talking Third Strike, but I think it was part 1. He went off and he figured out that there was an incredibly easy infinite with Ibuki that does like insane amounts of damage, causes dizzy. It's a touch of death basically, and after that no one could ever beat him again, because if he ever get that one hit in, he would win the whole game. It was the most broken strategy ever, I think, in a fighting game. It was so ridiculous. And I always remember he had really good reaction times as well. He had really good muscle memory. He would be the guy that every time you jump at him, he's going to fucking Dragon Punch you. Not once will you jump at him and you will not get a Dragon Punch to the ball sack. That's how good he was, okay? And I remember that, at that point in my life, being 15, 16 years old, I was playing for fun. Now, T was a year older than me, so he was maybe, 16, 17 at the time. And I remember that at one point, he had this feeling, this inkling, that just playing in the local arcade wasn't good enough for him anymore. Because let's face it, he was the top of the food chain. He knew he was better than everyone else in the arcade. Although, occasionally I would beat him or someone else would beat him. Most of the time he would be dominating whenever he was there. And he knew that he needed new blood and he wanted to, he craved it. He had that, what do they call that? The fighter spirit, the eye of the tiger. It wasn't enough for him to be the best at his local arcade. He wanted to move on and have more challenges in his competitive, whatever you call it. I really wasn't of that mindset at that point in my life. I was perfectly happy to go to the arcade on a Friday night, play for several hours, have fun, and that was it for me, And then I remember one year, T was gone for about a long weekend. He told me he was going to go to this tournament and that he wasn't going to be around that weekend. I was kind of bummed because I was like, man, well, I'm not going to this tournament. It means that you're not going to be here. So I'm going to basically be beating up on all the locals here. And there's not going to be, a lot of amazing challenge for me in these games. And I remember he came back from that tournament. And my God, he was like a changed person. He was like, it was like he saw the meaning of life. You know what I mean? Like he saw some kind of an amazing ultimate truth and that he was enlightened. Because he came back and he's like, Phil, he's like, you don't even know. You got to go to a tournament with me. He's like, yeah, I met so many people. I had so much fun. I learned so much. And wait till I tell you about this tournament. So this tournament actually took place around the time when, if I'm remembering correctly, everyone was playing games like X-Men versus Street Fighter, stuff like that. And he had gone to play in that. But at this tournament in the Midwest, it was actually, of all things, the Midwest Championships. That's right. It's the tournament that I ended up going to years and years later and attending many times. But at the time, he had gone to the Midwest Championships, which was held at Nickel City, just outside of Chicago, run by that's right, the world-famous Jason Wilson, who ended up years later running Midwest Championships, running the SBO qualifiers that I attended in the Midwest. He ran the Midwest Championships back then. And I remember him coming back and saying, I met so many people. I had so much fun. And wait till you hear this. Jason Wilson got his hands on a beta copy. It wasn't the finished game, but a beta version of Street Fighter Alpha 3 that wasn't out in arcades yet. And they had a tournament, an on-the-spot tournament, like a day one tournament. And T won the tournament, which like blew everyone away. Like, how could he win a day one tournament? And keep in mind, pro-level players go to Midwest Championships. We're talking the big names of the time. And this was before the era of Justin Wong and Eddie Lee. This is more like the West Coast dudes. So you want to talk about the OGs like Alex Valle and Mike Watson. This was their prime time when they were the big top names in the business. And I don't know if they were there that particular year. But I do know that T somehow managed to win this day one beta tournament of Street Fighter Alpha. And he told me all about it. He had played with Vega, and I mean the Spanish Ninja, and he had done all this stuff. And it was just like an amazing story to me. And it did, it inspired me. And I was like, wow, if there ever are tournaments in this area, I'd like to do them. But, at that point, I never thought that I would save up money to go travel on a plane and fly out somewhere to play in a tournament. To me, that was like light years ahead. Like nothing that I would even think of doing, right? So then, the local mall started having tournaments, and I started attending them, and T started attending them too. But for whatever reason, this was really weird, really, really weird, right? T didn't do so well in those tournaments, and I don't know why. I don't know if he was more at home at the local arcade than at the mall, or he just didn't like something about the mall setting. But I do know that whenever he would play at the local mall arcade, that usually I would do better than him. And he actually, for a while, it was really weird, kind of stopped playing. And what I mean is that I really didn't see him around that much. And then I remember there was this one tournament in particular. That happened where it was the big thing. Oh my God, did you guys hear? Players from New York are coming. Players from New York City. We're talking the big leagues, people who enter the majors, players who are well known as for being good are coming to our tournament in Connecticut because they want to face competition outside of New York. And I'll tell you, for a tournament that was not a major tournament, this was unheard of. Locals from another area are coming to this area to enter their local tournament. Like, it was unprecedented. So these guys, it turns out, ended up being Josh Wigfall and Mike, and I forget it. I think it was Mike. God, I forget his last name because we always called him something for short. It was Mike D. We called him, I think. And so they show up, and they're doing stuff in Marvel vs. Capcom 1 that none of us have ever fucking seen. We're looking at it like, whoa, like this is good stuff. This is stuff with Wolverine, crazy ass long ass 70-80% combos, crazy ass lockdown strategies with Strider. And we're just blown away. And I remember T kind of saw it, and he was a little disappointed because he wished, I guess, that he had come up with that stuff first. And he didn't do too well in that tournament. And I remember I did okay. I think I made top 5. I even made like 3rd place. But I did lose to the New York players. I lost to Josh Wigfall in particular. But after the match, he shook my hand. Josh Wigfall's always been one of those stand-up guys in the Street Fighter community. And don't let anyone ever tell you different. If they say the name Josh Wigfall and they say he's a jerk, they're full of shit. They did something stupid, and he's mad at them, or he treated them bad because of that. He's like one of the most honorable people I've ever met in my life. And he was such a nice guy, and so nice about the fact that he came to Connecticut, and he was better than all of us, right? But at the end of the day, he shook all of our hands after our match. He said, that was a really good match. It was close, good stuff. I want to play you again after the tournament's over. And I was like, what a great guy, right? So after the tournament, I remember, in particular, T had lost and was, he was disappointed, but it wasn't like he was crushed or anything. But he just wanted to go do other stuff. And he had his gaming group of friends, and then he kind of had another group of friends on the side as well. It was like he had 2 different groups of friends, and we didn't always interact. And I remember that day he was so kind of annoyed at what had happened at the tournament that he wanted to go hang out with his other group of friends. And so he said, Phil, do you want to come hang out with us? And I wasn't really too friendly with them. And I said, nah, it's cool. I'll go home. I played in the tournament, did all right. I'll go home and I'll see you at the arcade this weekend. Or whatever it was. We shot the shit, And I thought nothing of it whatsoever. And at the time, I actually worked at the mall. I actually worked at the same mall where this arcade was in. Remember I've said in the past, I had this mall job where I tossed salad and pumped yogurt at a health food store. Yeah, this was that job, okay? And so during this time period, I worked there, and I worked there, usually it was weekends because I was still in high school, right? So I remember coming into work one day. Oh, by the way, one thing I want to show you. T gave me this. In fact, T gave me the entire... I had like 1 or 2 of these. I think I had Blanca, and I may have had like Blanca and Honda, and that was it. These were little keychains, Street Fighter keychains, that were actually prizes, ticket prizes at our local arcade for winning tickets. And T had actually won so many tickets one day that he went and he got like a ton of these and he gave them out. He gave me a whole set. So I have a whole set of the original 8 World Warriors. This is branded 1992, officially branded Capcom from Street Fighter 2. The keychain set. I have the whole set and they're in like mint condition. Pretty crazy, but I thought I would show that. There's a little cool little knick-knack for you. And so I worked in the mall. I remember this one day. Now this was like a couple days after this tournament that had taken place. And I walk in, and as I'm walking in, another player, another local player from the area who I knew, I wasn't super friendly with him or anything, but I knew him. We had been competitive in the game. Walked up to me, and his face was so sad. His eyes were full of tears. And I looked at this guy, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And he grabbed me by my shoulders like this, and he like ringed me. He said, did you hear? And I said, hear what? He says, did you hear? No. What the hell are you talking about? Here I am. I'm in my bright neon green work shirt, right? I'm going to walk to work to punch in. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm thinking I might be late for work. I don't know what's going on with this guy. He's hysterical. And he goes, T died. I said, what? You're pulling my chain, man. You're full of shit. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. And he pulled me aside and kind of slammed me against the wall to let me know that it was serious. He was like, no, dude, T died. And I remember at the time, I was in shock. It was like, what? And at that point, that was the first person who I ever knew in my life that had passed away. And I was only 17 years old. And it was like, what? Like, it would not click in my head. Like, what is the rational reaction when you find out that someone passed away that's your friend? You know? And it's like, pain, anger, sadness, crying. I was like, I'll tell you right now, I don't remember how the rest of the conversation went. I do not remember. I don't. I don't remember. I just remember walking into my job and my boss was there and he looked at me and he says, you don't look right. What's wrong? I said, I just found out my friend died. And he looked at me. He's like, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you okay? And I was like, I guess so. And I remember working for about maybe 3 or 4 hours that day. And I don't know where my head was. I was just not myself. And then I remember at one point, it was like break. And I had to use the bathroom. And I went into the bathroom and I went to the stall. And then it hit me. And I was like, wow, he's dead. And I cried. And that was really the first stage of accepting it. But there was always a piece of me in my head that didn't want to. A piece of me that was like, no, this didn't happen, And it was funny because that was kind of my reaction to everything. Like, I went to my parents and I told them, and they were like, are you kidding me? What happened? And I was like, I don't know the full story yet. I heard that he was shot, and I don't know. And it just kind of, I don't remember. I'm serious. Like, I swear to God, my subconscious has blocked it out. I don't really remember much about that time period of my life. I don't remember if I went to the arcade or not anymore at that point. I know eventually I went back, but I don't know at what point, if it affected at all what I was doing. I do remember going to the wake, and I remember the wake was the most fucking weird thing I've ever done in my life because he did not look like himself. He looked weird. He looked like a mannequin to me, and I'm staring at him, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what the fuck is going on? This is so unbelievable. Things were going so well. A vibrant life, someone who was a savant at video games, and really, let's take a look at what has happened to video games since 1999 when T passed away. Sure, in the years 2000, 2001, 2002, there was a lot of stagnation. But then with this reinvigoration that happened with Street Fighter 4, I guarantee you if T were still alive, he would have been one of those savants. Day one, he would have figured out all the top tier shit. He would have been dominating everyone with Sagat from day one. He would have been winning tournaments. He would have been going around. And just to see I I don't I just don't even I still don't know what to say about it. I don't. I'm just so flabbergasted at what happened. So now I'm going to tell you guys what happened, okay? Because if this isn't the most just vile story of people who just don't need to exist, people with absolutely no aim or drive or purpose to their life, I don't know what is. You're not going to believe the story. So here's the story. Wait till you hear this. So it was either that day when we were at that tournament at the mall that T had not done too well in and he had gone to hang out with his other friends, or the day after. That was never cleared up what day it was. But like I told you, T lived in a bad neighborhood. He couldn't afford to live in a good place. And unfortunately what would happen a lot of the times is that people would drop him off a few blocks from his house because, quite honestly, and this is no exaggeration, he was in one of the worst places to live in Bridgeport, Connecticut. The most crime, drug dealings, shootings, all of that stuff. And he just couldn't move out because that's where his family lived. He had to live where his mom could afford, right? So people would not even drive up to his house. I was one of the few people, when I finally could drive when I was 16, I was willing to drive up to his house at least in the daylight. But I knew that I had to get the fuck out of there as soon as I dropped him off because that was a horrible area, okay? So apparently, here's what happened. Apparently what happened was he had gotten dropped off a few blocks away from his house. Now, what I'm telling you are facts based off the police report that I read the other night. Because for years, as I said, I lived in denial. I didn't want to know the circumstances around it. It was too emotional for me. And finally the other night I manned up and I looked up the police report, and now I know exactly what happened. Here's what happened. He's walking home only a few blocks away. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't looking for trouble, right? He never had. He wasn't that kind of person. So he's walking home and there's another car coming from the opposite direction coming up his street. And the car stops. There's 3 youths inside the car. One of the youths says that he has to piss. Stop the car. I have to piss right now. Now let me ask you something. What kind of person, what state is a person that they have to piss so bad they can't wait to get to a toilet? So it's quite obvious he was either intoxicated, inebriated, whatever it was, okay? He gets out of the car, literally walks to the sidewalk and begins to piss off of the sidewalk, okay? Now, T doesn't know what the hell's going on. This guy's facing, a building or whatever, minding his own business. He's walking down the street. The guy hears him, turns to him, gets startled, pulls out a gun, fires 4 fucking shots. Not 1, not 2, 4 shots into T's chest. So it wasn't just boom, oh shit, run away. It was intentional. Boom, 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 boom. Runs away with his dick hanging out, jumps back into the car, tells his 2 friends. His friends are like, what the fuck just happened? He goes, I just shot some kid, let's go. Kids drive off and that's it. Luckily, people heard it, and I have to say this, luckily people fucking reported it, because I hate to say it, there's a big problem in the United States of people who do not report this kind of stuff. Reported it, the cops found them, all right, arrested them immediately, found the gun, found everything. And apparently in the heat of the moment in the arrest, okay, they didn't read the guy his Miranda rights. This is going to come into play, so let me give you the whole story, okay? They didn't read the guy his Miranda rights, but they did interrogate everyone. They found the gun, the bullets matched the gun, the piss was all over the street, kind of hard to dispute it when your fucking DNA is all over the street because you pissed all over it. He blatantly told both people in the car that he had shot T, and they both squealed on him. Both of the people in the car told on him and said, yeah, as soon as he ran back in the car, he said that he shot him. We don't know what the fuck he did that for, right? Basically, there was literally a 3-ring fucking circus of evidence proving that this guy had done it. Proving it. Definitively that this guy had done it. So he goes to trial, he's in jail, goes to trial, blatant murder, because that's exactly what it is. It's murder. Although, I believe what it was, aggravated manslaughter. It's not blatant premeditated murder, because obviously he didn't even know who T was, so it can't be that highest murder charge. It was the one that gives you, 50 to life or whatever, because you just killed someone with no reason. So, goes to trial. What's the guy's defense? They didn't read me my Miranda rights. That's his defense. Because the guy had none. He literally murdered my friend for no fucking reason. He's that low of a person on the food chain. That low of a person in just the levels of life. You've got, the people up here who are really nice people. They help people. Then you've got normal people. Then you've got people who just look out for themselves. Then you've got people who are barely functional. Then you've got the people who are in the hospital that are vegetables. Then you've got the animals. Then you've got, the subhuman levels of life. You've got the mitochondria. You've got pond scum. And then you've got him. The guy that will literally murder you for fucking nothing. Okay? He has no defense. His defense is, they didn't read me my Miranda rights. Thank God. Thank God that there is at least some justice in the justice system. Even though they didn't read him his Miranda rights, which, yes, people can actually get off for it. Get off and not get charged or go to jail. Okay? He went to jail, and here's why. He got convicted of murder, 50 years to life. Ended up getting really convicted of a 50-year sentence. Why didn't the Miranda rights come into play? Because they had so much evidence against the guy, there was no way there could have been a shadow of a doubt. That's what they're basically saying. Okay, so you didn't read him his Miranda rights and he confessed. If we take away his confession and say he never confessed, both of his friends said he did it. His piss was at the scene. The bullets matched the gun. The DNAs and fingerprints on the gun. There is no defense for this guy. Zero. So regardless that he confessed, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that they didn't read him his Miranda rights. He went to jail. Get this. He's tried to appeal twice as recently as, I think it was 2009, trying to get out of jail saying, they didn't read me my Miranda rights. What lawyer would waste their time with this fucking guy? Really? You're not going to get him off. There was overwhelming evidence that he did it. Why would you know what I mean? Why would you even bother trying to appeal? But I guess that's our system. They're trying to be fair and balanced. Everyone gets a shot. Whatever certain year criteria it is, they could try to appeal. His only defense is that they didn't read him his Miranda rights. Now, by the way, let me say this. For those of you who don't know what Miranda rights are, because I just realized I have an international audience who may not know. In the United States of America, when you're being arrested, the police officer who is arresting you and taking you into custody must read you a statement stating that you have certain inalienable rights, that you have the ability, for example, you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, an attorney will be provided for you. Basically things that are provided for by the law. And if they don't read that to you and you confess, for example, exactly what this guy did, later on he can say, well, my submission or my confession is inadmissible because they didn't read me my Miranda rights. And I'm not smart, so I didn't know that they could use that to incriminate me. So that's his whole case, but luckily there was enough evidence that he's been put away, and he's going to serve at least another 35 years in jail for what he did. Okay? But it really just, when this happened, I don't remember that few months. It was a flurry that I lost. I couldn't tell you what happened during those months. I couldn't tell you my mindset. What I could tell you is that I didn't give up. Eventually, I had the courage to eventually play Street Fighter again. And I always remember every fucking time that I played Street Fighter, I thought, this is for T, because he would have wanted me to go to the next level, to go to the next step. He was the one who was trying to motivate me to leave Connecticut and go to tournaments. And eventually, not only did I start playing in and winning my local tournament scene in Connecticut, I ended up traveling. I went to ECC, which is the East Coast Championships. I went to B5. I went to other tournaments in the area. Later on, as the games became more prevalent, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I went to Philly. I went to Texas. I went to Chicago. I went to California. I went to Vegas. I traveled everywhere playing Street Fighter. And I'd never have done that, never, if it weren't for T. Because like I said, he was really the Ryu. He was the one with the natural talent. He was the one that inspired everyone else around him to become better. Because of his positive attitude, because of his drive, because of just his spirit. The smile on his face when he came back from these events was amazing. Okay? And now without further ado, what I'd like to do is shoot over to a different thing here and show you some pictures of T at the Midwest Championships that he attended that one year. Because that's actually where these pictures are from. These are from the very first time that Telrence attended the Midwest Championships I believe it was 1998. I'm not positive 100% on that. So obviously, this is him with the camera in front of him, so that's not going to help you very much. But it's kind of funny. Take a look at the poster on the wall. X-Men Children of the Atom, an arcade game from the time. Let me actually go all the way to the bottom here. It's not scrolling. There we go. All right. So there he is. A nice candid shot of him posing in the arcade. And the reason that he's posing in a fairly empty arcade, I'm going to explain in a moment, because of who he was friends with. Another local from Connecticut who became a legend because he was friends with pretty much all the top groupings in the Street Fighter community. There he is. There's T, and standing right directly to the left of him, his name is Scott Hovhannissian. Scott was a hell of a character, man. He's still around, but, he's semi-retired. He doesn't really care about Street Fighter anymore. Of all the people, who were affected by T's loss, he was affected as one of the hardest because he was kind of like the mentor to T. He saw T's natural talent. He was the one who traveled with him to the Midwest Championships. Okay? And so Scott was kind of the, the barrier, the bridge between us and the competitive Street Fighter community. He was very good friends with Jason Wilson, he knew Seth Killian, he knew all the top dudes in Street Fighter who ran tournaments. And although Scott was never amazingly good on a competitive level, he's one of the funniest fucking guys you'll ever meet. I've already told the story about the East Coast Championships that I went with him, and he was staying in our room, and basically he was like making fun of me because I told everyone to be quiet because I wanted to go to sleep, and he was like, yeah, be quiet, I want to go to sleep. And then when everyone would laugh, and when everyone was going to sleep, he would go like he was jerking off, like, oh yeah, in the corner of the room. He's a fucking funny dude. And he is the one who traveled with T to Midwest. So there's one picture there. Another candid shot of T on the outside. I'm not sure where they are. This does not look like the parking lot of Nickel City, which is the arcade where the event took place. So I'm not sure where this is. Let's see what else we've got here. This is funny because the guy who gave me these pictures goes, I have no recollection who the person on the left is. He hands me the picture. He goes, I don't have a fucking clue who that guy is, man. Like, he wanted to take a picture with T. I don't know who that is. So I have no idea who this guy is. I don't even know if he still plays Street Fighter. Who knows? But there you go. Now, this is a cool shot. I'm going to give a few seconds here, and I'm going to ask anyone in the stream chat right now, do you recognize who that person to the left of T is? I will give you a cookie if you could tell me the name of the person standing to the left of T, because he is extremely well known in the Street Fighter community. Extremely well known. Let's see if anyone can guess. No one so far is... Oh, they got it. They got it. Ponder, a.k.a. one of the Cannon brothers, a.k.a. one of the co-owners of Shoryuken.com and one of the co-runners of EVO. So there you have it. I mean, if that's not evidence that those guys were around back then and they were, before there was an SRK. This was before there was an SRK.com. This was before there was an EVO. they were traveling the country playing Street Fighter. It was a grassroots movement. So that's a pretty cool showing of kind of a semi-empty arcade. Now, the reason that this arcade is so empty is because they were actually allowed in early because they were helping to set up. Because Scott was friends with Jason Wilson, you were allowed to go in early as long as you helped set up the tournament, and that's why the arcade is fairly empty. These players are probably testing the controls. And someone says, is that guy in the background picking his nose? Do not look. I don't know. Oh, God, I clicked the wrong one. Okay. So this is a shot of probably what the arcade looked like a little bit more when it was more crowded. Keep in mind, back then, it's not like today where you go to a tournament and there's a giant projection screen and you could watch the stream on your phone. It wasn't like that at all. You had to jump, crawl over people, look over people's shoulders, stand on chairs to see this little arcade monitor to see what was going on in a game. So it was extremely crowded in these arcades. It was such a different time. And, how things have changed. So, all right. What else do we got? See, I like this shot because this basically gives you an idea of what it was like to play on arcade cabinets. You'd be standing directly next to your opponent. A lot of the times it was a cramped area. Sometimes you'd have a chair. Sometimes you wouldn't. As you can see, there's actually a stool behind one of the players here who probably thought some players were comfortable sitting in the chairs. Others weren't, depending on your height. And I guess these guys are opting to stand up. And you'd basically all stand in a row alongside each other playing. You'd be shoulder to shoulder. And then, like I said, a lot of the times when the arcade got more crowded, you'd have people looking around the sides, looking over your shoulder, trying to see what was going on in the match. Okay. This is a cool one because this is Chicago O'Hare Airport. Apparently, when they went to meet up with T when he flew in, they went and picked him up from the airport, and this is him walking in at the airport, which is pretty neat. So O'Hare Airport 15 years ago, before the day of the full body cavity search and the extremely intrusive radioactive scanning, before 9/11, when you could actually walk through the airport and not have to fear for your life. Here's another shot. Heated competition. The players all lined up playing each other. Actually, give me a second. I'm going to walk up to my PC and see if I recognize any of these players. I recognize... Let's see. Well, unfortunately, I do recognize one of the players, but he's a scumbag and he was a thief. One of the players here is a notorious thief who used to go to tournaments and steal people's shit, and people didn't know it until about 2004 when he was permanently banned from every tournament ever. So I'm not going to name him because he does not deserve it. Okay, then. Continue on. By the way, he was later arrested for credit card fraud. Here we've got T playing Street Fighter 3. This is the larger style cabinet. It's not like the standard stand-up cabinets that you saw earlier. This was they called this the marquee because it was kind of like, a cabinet that was more prominently displayed. It was easier for more people to watch. This was the kind of cabinet you would want to hold your tournament finals on because it's a bigger screen and more people can see the action. Okay? All right. Only a couple more left here. So this is a cool group shot. Hold on, let me see if I can tell you who these people are, because I do recognize a few of them. All right, so first of all, obviously you guys see T. To the right of T, that person sitting next to him, the white guy with the white baseball cap, his name is Bill Gold. He is a Honda player in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. He has always been a Honda player, and he always will be a Honda player. He's played the game adamantly since the day it was released. He still plays it to this day. He still travels to tournaments such as all the ones in Philly. I forget what the Winter Brawl and the NEC. He still travels to those tournaments and still regularly enters them. Let's see here. If you go 3 spots to the right, 1, 2, 3, the guy on the furthest right, that's Jason Wilson from 1998. And if you know Jason Wilson from today, he pretty much looks the same, except that he looks a lot younger there. He looks like a kid. Now he looks like a man, but he has the same hairdo and everything today that he has. And of course, that's Scott up behind Jason Wilson posing. And then the final picture is kind of neat too. Hold on. This is awesome because here you're going to see a cacophony of players who showed up for Midwest Championships, including, if you actually take a look, hold on a second, I got to find them here. All right, so if you see where T is, you see that guy that's standing in front of T, who's kind of blocking T's face. If you look a little close at the guy's face, he's kind of giving like a snooty look. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like, he kind of has an air of arrogance around him. That's David Serlin. No surprise he looks like that. He looks like that in every photo he's ever been taken in because that's his personality. Yes, David Serlin is in this goddamn picture. Okay. Also, we've got, obviously you see Scott standing next to T. I believe right down there in the front, is that Ponder? Or is that his brother? I think down in the front might actually be Ponder's brother, who's his twin brother. Because I think they were wearing different clothing. And I think that Ponder was wearing glasses at the time. So I think that may be his twin brother. I'm not positive, though. Don't get me wrong on that. So it's one of the cannons up front there. Not sure who. People are saying you don't know who David Serlin is. Well, you guys must not have been longtime viewers of mine because we used to talk about him quite a lot. He was the person responsible for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. And, basically the person who single-handedly killed console Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo with the changes that he put into the game. Let me see if there's anyone else. I don't know. People are making fun of some guy for having a long neck. You guys are messed up, man. Oh, and there's Bill Gold. Obviously, all the way on the right. Like one or two to the left there, there's Bill Gold. And it's hard to recognize. I mean, keep in mind, these photos are incredibly blurry. This is old, film camera pictures, not digital camera pictures you could zoom in and clean up or anything. So that's about it. All right, so that is it for the pictures. And what I would like to do is I'm going to upload those at some point this week. I got to figure out what's the best place. Because you know what happens if you upload them to a certain place and you tag them, then they can go on Google Images and anyone who searches. Like I want people who search for T or Telrence Carter to be able to bring up those pictures of him. You know what I mean? And I don't know how to do that. So I'm hoping that people can give me some suggestions. Where should I upload those pictures so that when people search for him, they will pop up on Google Images? Maybe it's Facebook and I need to tag them. I don't know. Let me know. I don't know. I don't use all this social media shit. I don't understand it too much. I need to figure out how to use it. So, so that's that. That's the story. And, again, the person who really inspired me to have a competitive nature, the person who said, stop just playing the local competition. There's a bigger picture. That's what you should strive to be. The competition is fun. Again, like the competitive fighting spirit, like Ryu and Ken, where you always want to be one step better. You want to take on the next challenger. You don't want to be stagnant and only just sit there and do the same thing over and over and over. And T is the person who inspired me to push myself in life, really, in a lot of things, And, I never forgot him. And it's God rest his soul. I love you, T. It's been 15 years. And I never would have told you back then that my life would have been where I am now. I would have no fucking foresight whatsoever that I would have told you in 15 years' time, I'm going to make a living playing video games, right? I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing. I will have traveled the country. I will have gotten, fourth place at Evo. Nationals with only 3 Japanese above me. So technically I was the best U.S. player that year. I could have never fucking seen any of that stuff back then. Because back then it was just small picture. And T was the person who pushed me to see the big picture and to strive for the big picture. And in a lot of ways, he's the person who I hold responsible for me being successful in a lot of things instead of just being complacent and being happy to just sit here and do the status quo. He was the guy who made me see that there's more than that and that you can strive to live your life in a way outside of just the normal status quo. Not that there's anything wrong with the status quo, but wow, what a ride it's been, right? So at this point, this chapter of my life, I finally feel happy that I was able to, talk about it and get it off my chest because I've held this in for so long and I really haven't talked about it. And thank you. Thank you for listening and thank you for letting me do it. I'm moving on with my life to bigger and better things. I'm moving out of Connecticut shortly to the Seattle area of Washington. And I know I'm choking up a little bit here, but, I'm moving out of Connecticut and it's time. This is the time to be reminiscing on things like this. And I'm so glad that you guys gave me the opportunity to share that story with you. All right. Whew. It's like a weight. It's a weight off my shoulders. It really is. All right. So as I tear up like a little baby, thank you for watching Hate Live, everyone. There's obviously no time for callers this week. I apologize. Maybe next week we'll be more back on track with the normal stuff when I'm not here blubbering like a little wimp, and we'll do it then. But save your questions. Next week we'll have callers. Thanks for putting up with me for 2 hours, and that is it. Have a good night, everyone. Whether you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube, thank you very much. Peace out. Have a good night. I'll see you for gameplay tomorrow. But for now, thanks a lot for that, and I'll see you later.